Alright, man. Let me get a sip of this coffee here, and then we're going to start the episode right. Throat's a little dry, but that's alright, man. This is episode number 51 of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. This is being recorded on Saturday, March 18th, 2023, at exactly 11 a.m. Hope you all have had a very wise and productive week. It's Saturday, so I hope you can look back on the last couple of days and go, man, we got the job done. We put in the time, we put in the work, we put in the effort, and now we can reap the rewards. But we can't stop there. We got to keep on going, man. You know, you think you hit a milestone, and it's good to reflect, but it's also good to move on and keep on going, and not go, well, I did a bunch here, and I'll go back to it later. No way, man. You got to keep on going. You got to keep that momentum going. I mean, geez, like a car, man. It's like, we're going fast, that's cool. I love going fast, but I'm not going to put my foot on the gas anymore. And, why aren't I going fast anymore? It's like, man, because you stopped. What are you talking about? You're crazy as hell, man. I do apologize. I have a small canker on the side of my tongue, so I apologize if I'm talking a little odd today, or if certain words I don't pronounce quite as well, and my throat's drier than an Arizona desert, man. So, good God, I need some more of this coffee. I got hot coffee here, and I got cold water here to balance it all out. Very cool. All right, man. Jeez Louise. So, to start off, I heard in the news the other day, Lance Reddick has passed away. R.I.P. to him, man. He was a solid character actor, man. And I bring it up because it's right on the heels of, at the time of recording this, John Wick Chapter 4 being released next week, which he is in. So, it was a real shame to hear about that. His memory and his spirit will live on through us and through our memories of him. Gotta get more coffee of this, man. Start calling this the coffee hour. Ain't nothing more cozy than a hot beverage, man. Especially in the winter time, Hot coffee or hot tea or hot cocoa, man. You get underneath those blankets, you cozy up with a good book or a film, and you're all set, man. You gotta be careful though, sometimes you get a little too comfortable underneath the blanket. If I'm watching a film and I get under that blanket, oh man, I'm out. I'm passed out, man. I wake up and I'm at the main menu of the Blu-ray, or I'm at the home screen of my Roku, and I'm like, oh God, man, I gotta go back and find out where the hell I was. I gotta make sure, what happened recently, man? I was watching something. I fell asleep during a film. I don't remember what it was, and I was like, oh, I think I stopped here. All right, I'm watching it, and then about 30 minutes go by, and I realized, wait a minute, I've already seen all this. I just sat here rewatching this 30 minutes, but that's right, we got a refresher, so it all worked out. One of the strangest times, man, was I had the Blu-ray of Slapshot with Paul Newman, and I fell asleep in the middle of it, and when I woke up, it was already seen, like, they were playing scenes I had already seen before. I was like, I didn't register it at first. I'm like, well, this looks really familiar. I ain't never seen this movie before. And then I realized, like, pretty soon, I was like, wait a minute, this Blu-ray loop or something like that? Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know if I fell asleep, and while I was asleep, I pressed play again, but the movie played again, man, and it was strange. I was like, this is a really long movie, man. I feel like I'm going to watch this for hours and hours and hours. And, well, it had been playing for hours and hours and hours, but not in the same film. Not in the same stretch, I should say. Gosh, man. Speaking of long films, man, an acquaintance of mine was telling me about this film that I really want to check out. This movie called Out One from, what year is this, man? I gotta check this out. Sometime in the 80s, I believe. Or maybe, no, I'm sorry. It's 1971, starring, what's his name? Jean-Pierre Lude, who is known as Antoine in Francois Truffaut's films, directed by Jacques Rivette. He was telling about this. This is a little over 12 hours. This is okay, a little under 13 hours actually. 12 hours 53. I don't know if it's considered a film or a miniseries or not, but he was saying some real solid things about it, and I saw it was streaming on Canopy, so I definitely want to keep an eye out on this, man, for sure. Gonna have to watch this in doses, man. Ain't no way I can sit there for that amount of time. Certain films like that, certain long films, you gotta wonder what benefits are there sitting down and watching it in multiple viewings. In multiple spaced out sequences, I should say, or in one viewing overall. I like, for example, I'm thinking about, like, when I watched Showa which was about 9 hours, and I watched that over the course of 4 days because that Blu-ray that Criterion has, it's split up into four separate parts, and all of them I think are about 2.5 hours or so. I think the last one might be 3 hours or something like that. I don't know exactly what the runtime is, but it worked out because Showa itself is each part of that feels distinctly different in terms of conversation, in terms of points in the during the Holocaust. So when they're talking about certain parts, it benefits from really jumping back in, you know. But then again, it's like certain films. Like I've always wanted to see Satan Tango in a cinema. I've only seen that split up. That's about 7.5 hours, I believe, and I watched it over the course of 3 days. And that was an amazing experience. I was just completely sucked in. You know, each time I got back to it. And it's become one of my all-time favorite films. But I wonder if a film like that, because it's a very moody, black and white, very somber, nihilistic film, that seeing it in a dark cinema, just being there attached to the screen for those 7.5 hours, you know, I wonder. I'd be very, very curious to compare experiences, because a film like that, or something like Showa, you gotta watch it in the right setting, man. If, you know, people are on there, oh, I gotta get on my phone, I gotta get on social media, oh my god, it's been 15 minutes since I talked about, you know, this on social media, since I got in a fight online. It's like, man, you gotta get rid of all that crap, man, I tell you. I mean, I was reading something recently talking about, you know, the attention span has gotten lower and lower because the people are on, like, you know, TikTok and all these things. They watch like 10-second clips, and then, you know, I remember like when The Irishman came out, everyone's like, oh, I couldn't finish it, it was too long, and I'm like, man, you're crazy as hell. What are you talking about, man? It's a long film, but it's rewarding, man. I mean, geez Louise, and that's why it is a funny kind of comparison to see. You know, films are getting longer, but attention spans are getting shorter. You know, I was reading what the hell? Yeah, John Wick. Going back to John Wick Chapter 4, that's almost 3 hours, man. That's crazy, man. What's that new movie? Yeah, it was Beau is Afraid. I think that's 3 hours or so. Avengers Endgame was 3 hours. Avatar was over 3 hours. It's crazy, man. It's I mean, I got no problem with it if it warrants for the film. If the film warrants that runtime, so be it, man. The new Scorsese film, I think, is 3.5 hours as well. Killers of the Flower Moon, because you know he's going to use that time wisely. You know there ain't going to be any fat or filler in that. He's going to use it. You know, you see it's 3 hours. There's going to be a reasoning for it. But then you go to see, like, some superhero movie or whatever, and it's like 3 hours. It's like, man, it just doesn't need to be 3 hours, man. I hate to break it to you, but I can't imagine that this plot of Spider-Man running around the city is in-depth, man. I ain't throwing shade at those kind of movies, man. To each their own, but I'm just saying, man, you know. But it don't bother me. I ain't watching those anyways, so let me get some more coffee here. But yeah, it's an interesting comparison, so... But then again, sometimes it's easier to pull the trigger on films that are an hour or an hour and a half compared to something longer, you know, and I get that, and I've been the same way. You know, there's some times where I just, you know, if I watch a long film, I don't want it back to back with a long film. I made that mistake when I was doing my 2021 list. I watched Memoria, which is a very slow, moody. It's a film you really have to just, like, you got to be in it. You can't be on your phone doing anything. It's a little under 2.5 hours. It's a brilliant film, I think. And then I followed that up with another film, this film Days, which is a little over 2 hours. I think it's like 2 hours 7. And that's a film that is that same kind of feeling. But I don't think it was a good idea to watch that back to back because. After Memoria, I kind of, you know, you want, not even necessarily a palate cleanser, because that kind of sounds like a disrespect or a disregard to anything you watch after the fact, but you want to watch something different, because if you're watching two films that have the same kind of movie, like, you know, people have, like, they have double features, and they're and then it's just double features of films that are pretty much like the same, you know. It's like, oh, you got two westerns that feel the same, and then you walk out and you don't remember, you know, what happens in them, man. And it's just like, what, man, you wanna mix up with a western and another film that's maybe similar in style, but maybe not exactly that, you know. That's why oftentimes when I see programs of like double features or triple features, it's just like, man, you just chose two films or three films that are the same thing, you know. That's boring, man. Who wants to watch two films that are the exact same, you know? It's just I don't know, to each their own though. But speaking of Truffaut from before, I've had the joy of reading this really fantastic Truffaut book. Actually, I'm gonna get up right here, and maybe you can hear, maybe you can't. I gotta pull it out of my bag here, man. Oh, jeez, I left my bag in the car. Well, never mind, man. I'm gonna have to try to look it up. I knew I forgot something in my car. Gosh, man. Well, I see if I can find this book here, man, because I want to make sure I get the author here. It's somebody who worked with Truffaut for a while. They were his translator, I believe. This book was from 2003, and if need be, here it is. I was going to pause it, but I actually can pull it up right here, man. Quite a good amount of books on Truffaut. I really want to read some more of this stuff, because I picked up this book from the bookstore I mentioned a little while ago. I picked up this in another book, and I get a sip of coffee here. I feel my throat getting a little chapped. Delicious. Drinking out of a Jeopardy mug, man. Hell yeah. Alright. Let's see here. Let's see. Try not to have too much silence when it comes to an audio presentation. But this was written by Annette Ainsdorf, or Einsdorf. There's a couple different versions of this book, and they've also written other books as well here. Let's see, you got like Double Lives, Second Chances, which is about Krzysztof Kieslowski. You have a book on Philip Kaufman, Incredible Shadows, Film and the Holocaust. Ooh, actually, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I actually might want to keep an eye on that one. Anyway, so she wrote this book about Truffaut, and I thought it was going to be just a biography, which I love reading biography. I really just read strictly nonfiction. I don't find it to be interesting as much to read fiction novels. I like to, if I'm reading, I want to learn something about film or about cinema or anything in that regard. So that's what I primarily read. But she wrote this book, and I expected a biography. And quickly I realized that it's not a biography as much as it is a in-depth analysis on each of his films. This has a couple of revised versions. I don't know what the copyright is on the one that I have. I know it is the newest of the three. I believe this says 1995. I don't know if that was the first one that came of this or if that was the newest, but it's great because it goes through each of his films really almost in not from the beginning to the end. Like, it doesn't start out with the 400 blows and then shoot the piano player. It really kind of jumps around. So it goes through each of his films and really looks at his directing styles, moments in the film where you see what he decides to do with the characters, what certain moments mean. And it's brilliant, man. I'm halfway through it. And the only real issue that I have, it's my own issue, man, is that because I haven't seen all of Truffaut's films, the ones I haven't seen, I'm reading through, and when I go and watch these films, I'm going to have these ideas in mind, but at the same time, I kind of like to watch these films very fresh and not knowing anything about it. That's kind of how I go about them. Because I own quite a bit of Truffaut's films, but I've only seen, the 400 Blows, Stolen Kisses, I think I've seen Bed and Board, Day for Night, that might be it. But I own plenty of his films, though. I mean, I own all the big ones, really. All the ones that Criterion have out on Blu-ray. Hoping for a Blu-ray of Shoot the Piano Player at some point. I want to see here make sure I don't miss any. I think I've seen Bed and Board. It's one of the sequels in the Antoine Doinel series, and I don't remember which one it was. I have to look on Letterboxd, but it was one of them. So I've only seen a couple of his films, but then some of his big ones I haven't seen yet. Jules and Jim, The Soft Skin, Shoot the Piano Player. So reading them, it's interesting. It's interesting the way that Truffaut worked and how he directed and how he was. They talk about how he preferred to work. The way he directed kids was very unique and interesting because one thing that actually the book hasn't brought up yet, which I find interesting, and I hope it does bring up, is Truffaut's influence from a film I talked about a little while ago, Little Fugitive from 1953. This was directed by Morris Engel and I think it was his wife at the time. We have Ray Ashley, Morris Engel, and Ruth Orkin. And this was you watch the film and you could have a double feature with this and the 400 Blows. I mean, that would be a good double feature because they're it's the same similar kind of film, but they're both very different in a way because you have this film, which I talked about before, but if you haven't listened to that episode, I'll just talk about it briefly here. You have this kid, Lenny, played by Richard Brewster, who his brother and their friends, they play a cruel joke on him because they're miles away. He wants to go to Coney Island, but they're like, we're not gonna take you to Coney Island, man. So they play this cruel joke on him, make it seem like he accidentally killed his brother, and they're like, you gotta run away, man. The cops are gonna come after you. So he runs away to Coney Island. And for pretty much the rest of the film, man, we kind of get, I don't even want to say quite cinema verite, because it's not exactly that, but this really more of like a hangout kind of film, man. I know that's a term that's been used a lot the past couple of years with films like, I mean, not just the past couple of years, but films like, like Two Lane Blacktop or something, where you're just with these characters, where it's not really concerned with the plot, more so about a point in time in these characters' lives. And that's really what this is. It's over the course of a day. And, we occasionally cut back to the brother and all of them going like, oh, that was a bad joke, we should go get him and stuff. And it's interesting the way most of this film is very casual. It's, the way that it's directed, a lot of height level from the kid, which is something that you never really think about when you're watching a film with a lot of kid actors, is having the camera be at that level, so there's not this imposing view, you're not looking down on them. And a lot of when I say the influence on 400 Blows is there, it is because 400 Blows I think is a little more, well, I shouldn't say it's a little more, it is more of a character film. I mean, you have this character Antoine, and the problems that he has with his parents, with his school. He's he's rebellious, but he doesn't want to be. He's somebody who wants to be a good person, but he is in that adolescence where he's just messing up. He's no one's really on his side or anything like that. And it's interesting to see that even without the other films, because I think the other films we got a little bit more humorous, which is fine. I really like how Jean-Pierre Lude plays that role. But as the 400 Blows on its own, I think it's a really interesting, it's one of my favorite films of all time, but it's a very interesting look at this kid in these situations of just feeling trapped. And the way that the book describes the ending, it was I won't give away the ending in case you haven't seen the film, but it was a way that Annette described the ending and where that character is that I never even thought of, which it seems kind of obvious the way that she explains it. Again, I don't want to say give anything away in case you haven't seen it. I'm really against the idea of, this film's been out for a while, I should have seen it by now. It's like, my man, there are films out from the 20s I haven't seen. I don't give a damn if it came out 5 minutes ago or 50 years ago or 100 years ago. If you haven't seen the film, you haven't seen the film, I ain't gonna ruin the ending for you. I ain't gonna ruin it for you, man. You gotta experience art the way that you would need to experience it, man. But just seeing it, and the way the moment when 400 Blows ends, on top of him being one of the best final shots of any film, where that character is in that point in time, and in relation to his exteriors, I was like, man, that is such a spot on, not even analysis, because she worked with Truffaut closely, so I don't know how much of this is her opinion or if that was the intention. I'd have to read more Truffaut to really get into his mindset. But of all of French, I just finished reading a book. It was called Revolution. It was about the world cinema, the directors and the films of the 60s, and which is a fantastic book. I actually would highly recommend that book. It's just from the late 50s going into the 60s, and then a little bit into the early 70s. And it talks about, that book was written, I think, in 2004, so most of the people in that book have passed away, but there's a lot of interviews in there, and they talk about what they did in the 21st century and all that up to that point, 2004. Like I mentioned, it's like Godard, and it talks about how he still worked like pretty much nonstop, but then there is that gap where you have he started to slow down towards the end, and then his final film, The Image Book, in 2018 would be it. I think it did something after that, but it wasn't a feature to my knowledge. The Image Book, I think, is very fascinating as well. That's one that I've read some interesting opinions on. If people are either very high or very low on it, and I'm kind of right there in pretty high on it. I find it to be a very interesting film, a very interesting later Godard film in terms of that it feels like a Godard film in the editing style, because it's just, from what I can remember, it's just all still shots, but I think it's a really interesting film. Let me get a sip of coffee here. But in that book, it talked about all of the French filmmakers, not just French filmmakers, but a lot of the like the Czech New Wave, the Italian neorealism. Oh, which, by the way, man, I forgot to talk about. Maybe if I have time, I'll talk about this film. But there's a film I wanted to mention that I watched that was a Polish film the other day. But of all the French filmmakers, I find I find Truffaut to be the most fascinating. Him and Rohmer, I think, are the most fascinating in terms of not well, Truffaut for his directing style, Rohmer for his the way that he does his characters. And the book, I got the sense that maybe the writer wasn't the biggest fan of Rohmer. There's one line I forgot where he kind of throws shade at My Night at Maud's, which is one of my favorite Rohmer films. But he talks about that film being kind of cliche with its dialogue and with its conversations. And I think I could see, if you're looking at it in the context of probably the French films of the time, I would get that. I am sure, like I said, like I said before, you watch five films, or you watch five westerns in a row. The third, you're gonna get to the third one and be like, man, this is exactly the same. But watching that film isolated on its own, even in relation to the six moral tales, La Collectionnaire, or I think I probably said that wrong. And Claire's Knee, Love in the Afternoon. I find My Night at Maud's to really be just great in its own right. Rohmer and Truffaut are both filmmakers who I've liked or loved everything I've seen by them, and I like I like Godard plenty. I like some of Varda's work. I'm not the biggest fan of Agnes Varda, but I do obviously respect her and her place in the French New Wave. I'm just not as high on some of her films. And of course, Demy was doing his own thing. I mean, Demy seems like he was in like just a different, not even like a new wave kind of thing. He did it a little bit with was it Lola, or is it? See, here's my memory starting to fade, man. I think it was Lola or Bay of Angels. I think it was Lola that I feel more about the new wave kind of sensibilities in that. Whereas later on, his work feels more polished than really any of the other French filmmakers. I mean, obviously, did like the Brielles of Cherbourg and the Young Girls of Rochefort and Donkey Skin, which I think is a really cool film. I know people aren't crazy about that film, but yeah, I think he's really cool, man. But I'm getting sidetracked, man. This coffee's getting me, so let me have another sip. No silence, man. Gotta keep it going. But Rohmer and Truffaut, I find incredibly fascinating, and I've had a lot of fun going through their work. And I really do. There's a Kino sale happening soon, and regardless if it's on sale or not, I really want to grab that Truffaut 4-film collection. That I don't remember what films were in there. I think I know it was The Manual of Women. I can't remember, man. But very fascinating stuff. For sure. Truffaut is such an interesting filmmaker. And yeah, I'm having a blast going through this book, man. It's fantastic. And actually I got time right here, so I'm going to talk about this film that I watched the other night from what's becoming one of my favorite labels, man. That I feel like I've seen a lot of this stuff get put out, and a lot of the good amount of their titles Criterion have also put out, so it has domestic kind of recognition as well in terms from a United States standpoint. But it's a second run. They're putting out a lot of really cool stuff, man. And I watched this film for the other night, directed by Karel Kachnya. This film, Coach to Vienna, or Carriage to Vienna, which is the cover has been eyeing me for a while, and I was like, man, I want to check that film out, and I'm totally glad I did, man. This was an incredible film for sure. There's barely any actors, and there's maybe only, I'm talking about main characters. There's really only 3 main characters. We have this lead here, Iva Jean Zurva, who plays his character Krista, who is transporting this Nazi soldier. Who is running from, I forgot what army he was running from, but him and his injured fellow soldier is in the carriage behind her, and she's making these plans to kill the both of them. So she's being very stealthy about it. She's like not being overt. She's hiding certain things, and we just see the issues start to arise from there. And you watch the film, man. And for a while, you're going, all right, I mean, you're enjoying it. But you're like, I kind of have an idea where this is going to go. And, we'll see how this plays out. It could go very one way, which is fine. But what this film does, what I find very interesting, is the relationship between Krista, who doesn't have a lot of dialogue in the film, and Hans, who, I think that was Hans. Like, see here, I want to make sure I get that right. Yeah, this is played by Jaromir Hanslik, if I said that correctly. And they have a very interesting relationship where they're both, I mean, Krista, for good reason, I mean, just she hates the guy. She wants to kill him. And Hans is, I mean, he's charismatic. He's very likable, and you're sitting there wondering, like, there's got to be something else going on here, man. Because you watch this, you're like, okay, what is going on in this character? And then when the tension really starts to build, what would normally be the climax of another film is really kind of about maybe a quarter of the way through, and then you're going, all right, well, we still have the rest of this film, man. And it's not a long film either. It's about an hour 20. But the way that their relationship goes back and forth, this kind of, you're watching the film, and both of them have the jump on each other multiple times. And it could have, it does something completely different with that. And I don't want to give away too much because it is a short film, so I don't want to just go by and, sometimes I get a little annoyed when people talk about a film. They just go through the whole film. I was listening to something, and the guy just spoiled the whole film. I'm like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? I'm not gonna watch the film now. I'm not gonna not watch the film, but I know what's going to happen. But I love the way this is shot, man. I mean, the exteriors of just these pitch black, woodsy trees, man. It seems like in the distance, there's all this fog around. It feels like another world, man. This kind of, this fog of war that is constantly around them, man. And, there's not a lot of characters in the film. We occasionally see some other trucks go by, so we're aware that, they're not completely cut off by this feeling of isolation and this feeling of kind of, these Hans and the other fella. Let me get his name up right here because he does very well in the film too. I want to mention, let's see, Gunther, played by Ludwig Munzar, and the dynamic between the three of them is great, man. I think I know a little bit of Karel Kachnya's work, more so in the fact that I know his name. I know the names of some of his films, but I have not seen, I don't think, any of his films. I think The Ear also has a release from second run as well. Let me take a look at this because I remember on the back of the Blu-ray it said that check out another one of his films. So The Ear has a Blu-ray out. So don't be sleeping on second run, guys. They have a lot of titles, and they're always putting out titles. And some of the titles have made it to Criterion, like Daisies, for example, which I just watched one of that director's other films. I don't remember which one it was that I actually liked quite a bit. If I had more time, I'd look it up. But Loves of a Blonde or A Blonde in Love has a Criterion DVD, Milos Forman from 1966, I think. I might be wrong about that, but which I'd love to get a Blu-ray of that. Loves of a Blonde is one of my favorite 60s films. It might be my favorite Milos Forman film. If I really got to think about it, maybe that and. Well, maybe One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, of course, but and then I liked his later work with Larry Karaszewski and Scott Alexander, of course. I mean, he's great there. But, don't be sleeping on this film, man. I'm sure you can probably find it here. I wouldn't be surprised if this actually even got a Criterion at some point. I thought this was a really terrific film, and it's short. My only real problem I got with the film, I got one problem that more so I feel like something happens at the end that's a little, not even underwhelming, but it's a little not even undeserved. It looks what I'm looking for. It's, dude, my memory has been terrible there. My memory more so in just the words I'm trying to remember, and then I turn off the podcast, and I'm like, man, I should have said that. But, there's a conclusion that, of a character does something, and I'm like, I don't know if they would do that, but, and I was reading Horrible Reviews' Jerome, his review on Letterboxd, and he said the exact same thing, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm glad I'm not alone on this. But Coach to Vienna, check that one out. Check out Truffaut's films, of course, if you haven't already. I mean, they're all pretty easily available. Rohmer as well, check them out. I recommend Mine Edit Mods. I'm a big fan of that film. That was actually one of the first films I talked about on the show, man. That was the first or second episode, I believe. I don't remember. But either way, guys, I'm running out of time here. So it's St. Patrick's Day weekend. Drink responsibly if you're going to. Make sure you don't slack off on the work. Get plenty of reading, watching, writing done. Do not get filming done if you need to. Get your painting, whatever you gotta do, man. The weekend is yours. Don't do it. Don't be sitting around talking about nonsense with nonsense people going, hey, how's the weather today? Oh, the weather's good. Hey, you watched that new TV show last night? Yeah, it was good. All right, yeah, it was a good talk. It's like, what the hell are you doing with my life, man? You're wasting my time. I feel my time being wasted. Man, I tell you. But anyways, man, the weekend's here. The weekend's yours. Enjoy it. I'm going to get out of here, finish off this delicious coffee. The cat's falling asleep right now. And, man, I tell you, he's living the American dream right there, man. All right, guys, all the best.